All right, good morning. I am Matt Gouget, Matt the Mortgage Guy. My partner, Nash Paradise, the Loan Wizard, with you for another Monday Market Update where we've got a pretty quiet week, but please stay tuned till the end. We've got some advice that I think in 2025 is an opportunity that may be overlooked in a lot of the country. So without further ado, Mr. Nash Paradise, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. Appreciate the shout out here. Let's dive in. You know, we may have a quiet day, but not a quiet week. We just don't know what to talk about until Tuesday. So not to tease where we're going, but yeah, you're not looking at an error or a typo here. You know, our producer, Caden, did not make a mistake when putting together last week's economic news. There were only 2 items on the economic calendar. That's what kind of week we had. Very, 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 very sparse. So with these, the jobless claims, everything was in line. You know, no major change, even though revisions to the previous news, nothing crazy going on last week. Everything hit about where it should be as expected and in line with previous month. So nothing really to talk about last week. Let's talk about this week though. So what I did mention last week is that coming up this week, we should be circling the 15th. The 15th is the day that everyone has been waiting for. Is the new CPI numbers. And the interesting thing about the projections here, you may be able to see, you may not, but either way, I'm going to tell you what's going on. Previous core CPI for month over month was at 0.1%. The consensus here is at 0.3%, which is, 20 basis points of increased inflation. The year over year CPI numbers from 2.4% to 2.7%. So this is interesting. We are anticipating headline CPI to go up 30 basis points month over month to go up 20. And then the year over year core CPI, 20 basis points. So everything is saying inflation numbers should be going up. If they don't, cool, we should have some reaction. But the weird thing is, in the I forgot how long a week was. In the 5 business days since we talked last, we have seen the markets trade sideways. We've seen treasury auctions be very mediocre. We have not seen anything good happen to interest rates. They've just had this really slow increase last week, just kind of like I said. So I'll pat myself on the back there. That usually means traders know what's coming, and it's not looking good for CPI. Anything that stands out to you, Matt, this week in the news?
Not necessarily. When I hear about inflation numbers going up, for people who aren't, following super close, that's a bad thing for interest rates. Because, the Fed, if they want to lean on an excuse not to move, it's, hey, listen, we still don't have inflation under control. And so we can't lower interest rates. As you said, circle the 15th, which is tomorrow, right? We will see what happens with those numbers because
did you freeze there, Matt, or did my connection just go soft? I can't tell if Matt's still talking. He's got a beautiful face on here.
Hey, Matt froze, but you're still good, Nash, if you want to take over.
Awesome. Let's just keep going then. So as I look at Matt's pretty face, let's get out of this week and talk about what's going on with the Fed forecasts. So as we, expected, this is getting worse and getting worse. So we are still looking at the first rate drop coming here in September. That's been fairly consistent, but the chances of that drop in September have been going down. Now it's only at 65%. I still think the data that we're going to get between now and then is going to suggest that first interest rate drop in September. If you remember 2 weeks ago, we were looking at 3 rate drops here by the end of the year. That has whittled all the way down to a second rate drop in December. And, that third rate drop now not coming all the way until March. So we keep pushing the field goal posts back. Everything that's been going on, all the Fed comments, all the stuff surrounding Powell, it's not looking good for quick rate drops. And that is not boding really well for interest rates. So the summary on this page, 2 rate drops still by the end of the year, third drop not until March, but we will see what this looks like next week, and maybe we can get some movement in the right direction. So let's talk about what's happened to interest rates here. So if you remember from last week, we had a little bit of a blip, a little bit of an increase as we moved past that 6.75 threshold. We've been saying for a while that 6.75 is a nice balance level. That's requiring the 10-year Treasury bond to be trading somewhere in the 436, 438 range. It's up to 444 right now, which is not necessarily ideal. We'd like it to be down under 4.4. That's the 10-year Treasury yield. When that is there, we're going to be around 6.75 or lower. Right now, we're 6.82. 6.82 is not enough to move the needle, but it's the trends that are concerning. Seeing in the last week things go up, about 8 ticks, not great, not in the right direction. Mortgage applications are down. Housing inventory is up. Everything has just kind of hit pause. And I think a lot of that comes from the July 4th holiday. A lot of people were just hanging out, chilling, not getting aggressive in the housing market because, hey, prices are up and interest rates are up and everything is up. So if it's a winning market for you in your market, awesome. There are lots of wins out there. Interest rates going up to 6.8, they're not going to move the needle for anyone making a decision or not. Tomorrow is really going to be the key kicker on where we go. We're either going to shoot up a lot higher and be closer to about 7%, or we could swing back down. I don't think we're going to get a lot further than that 6.75% on our floor, but we could dip under that a little bit depending on where inflation goes. So Matt, welcome back. At least you froze in a pretty look. So, I got to see the face for a moment. Why don't you, now that we've gone through interest rates, we've gone through the 2 rate drops, not seen a third until March of next year based on the projections. A lot of non-news. All the real stuff is going to happen tomorrow when we get the inflation figures. Talk to me a little bit about how the market is reacting and how different entities, builders specifically, are reacting to the market, and what does that mean for consumers out in your world there in California?
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit offline, so this is top of mind for me. Yesterday, I come in the office on a Sunday. I'm preparing for the week, make a couple client calls. Some clients, are available only on the weekends. Both great conversations were about buying in California, whether they should buy a new build or a resale home. And so for anybody listening, there's pros and cons, and there's some obvious pros and cons. People like, I would never live in a new build with a small lot with an HOA that has control over me. I want an established neighborhood closer to the school. I don't want to be on the outskirts where they built these 400 homes. But there's some pros as well. And one of the clients I talked to said, Lennar in Southern California has offered me $100,000 in flex credit. And by flex credit, you can do upgrades, you can do solar panels, you can get your closing costs paid for, you can use some of that for rate buy down. One, if that works for you and new build is your thing, by all means, go ahead and do it. But a little advice, make sure that you're still talking to somebody who can give you great advice. In this case, the builder's lender was telling this person to spend $80,000 on a rate buy down, and they're only getting to 5.75. And I'm looking at the rate sheet and I'm like, well, if I wrote the loan, I could get you to like 6 1/8 for $27,000. Like it'd be $53,000 savings. Like you're not going to be in this loan for the 9.5 years it's going to take you to break even on that. And so there's incentives. It works for some people. But like most things, it's not a one size fits all. And one more piece of advice that I want people to hold on to is like builders do these incentives and they structure credits because in a lot of cases, that's what really serves the buyer. As a buyer, you care a lot more about paying $2,700 a month versus $3,200 a month than you care about the price tag, whether it's $486 or $463. And I'm not saying that because I'm making a choice for consumers. I'm saying that because I talk to consumers every single day and they almost always choose the monthly payment that fits their budget. So talk to a mortgage professional like Nash Paradise, like a loan wizard out there that can help you structure and say, here's the payment that fits in your budget. Instead of going out there and offering $485, offer them $500 with $15,000 in credit. Look what I can do with that $15,000. We can do temporary buy down. We can do permanent buy down. We could do, in some cases, closing costs and a buy down. And so you can, in some cases, buy a resale home, get the advantage of the credit and the great loan structure that builders offer, because builders aren't doing it by accident. It works. Consumers like that, right? And so as a buyer of a resale home, set yourself up with similar structure. And a lot of markets are allowing for these credits. And so buyers, even though demand is down and the market may feel weird or slow, massive opportunity for buyers right now. Okay, end rant.
Yeah, no, that was a great rant. And I'll close this out here with a little, doubling down on your rant with a bit of side advice on your advice for your advice. Go in with a professional. Have a professional on both sides. Just because a builder's offering, 4.99 interest rates and 20 grand, those things are real. They're legitimate. They're not necessarily bait and switch. Are they baked into the sales price of the house? Sure. Are sometimes the material costs a little low than what you'd expect compared to resale homes? Yeah. There's always some trade-offs here. Like you mentioned, there's no reason not to be working with a mortgage professional on the front end and a real estate agent who is also a professional. Builders are notorious for wanting to cut out your professionals who serve you to make sure that they have you fully into their ecosystem. They save a lot of money when you don't have an agent, and they get a lot of control when you're working with their lender. Yeah, as a lender, there's a lot of times we can't compete with what the builder is offering, but what we can do is make sure that the numbers are right. And here in Texas, anyway, in a lot of the country, working with new construction and trying to set tax rates and property taxes and escrow can be very complicated. And I've talked to dozens, if not hundreds by this point, borrowers who have done their financing and then come back 14, 18 months later and said, hey, my payment went up $400 a month. What happened? And sometimes it's really egregious, where they just set it up on the value of the land. But many times it's just not knowing the math, not knowing how to set things up, not having good servicing, and having a professional in your corner ahead of time. One, we may be able to keep the deal. There have been a lot of times recently where I've had my buyer's agent be like, hey, yeah, cool. You're offering 20 grand plus title to use your lender. We want that 20 grand, or we're using our lender. And so because of our pricing being better, because of our ability to structure things that make more sense, we have a better bottom line and we're able to keep the deal and be the choice of the consumer, which is ideally what's best for everyone when the consumer gets to pick what makes the most sense for them. So bring in your professionals. Even if we don't get the deal, I'm probably going to write the refi in the next 1, 2, 3, 5 years. Builders, lenders don't care about that. And just making sure that the consumer knows what they need to know and they're best prepared for the future. That, if you're a real estate professional watching this, that's a great way to build more referrals, to get in front of more people. It doesn't take 15, 20 minutes to get another look by your lending partner. And just having your people in their corner shows that you care more about that transaction than just the paycheck that you get at the end of it. So always loop in your partners, make it something that you insist on, and work with professionals all over the place, front end, back end, everything you're doing as it relates to real estate. Have a professional in your corner like Matt, the mortgage guy at Goucher.
Love it, man. Have a great week, brother. We'll talk next week.
Awesome, homie. Take care.
All right, bye.